video. I saw that the last one seemed a little bit helpful, so I thought I'd continue on the series with talking about airspace and charts. So one of the most confusing things for private pilots, instrument pilots, commercial pilots, basically any pilot, is probably reading the charts. That's kind of one of the things that got me a little bit early on in my training, was how to read the charts, how to understand the charts. So today we're going to be looking at some instrument procedures here a little bit. I was actually requested to look at some approach plates. So I just kind of want to preface instrument flying. So instrument flying is a little bit different than VFR flying, in a sense that with IFR we have to there's a lot more building blocks that goes into IFR flight. So for a specific example here, we have pre-flight action. There are so many steps to pre-flight action that is kind of like a little bit incomprehensible. You know, with VFR, now I'm not saying please do not skip over steps, but with VFR I could just say, okay, hey, I'm going to do my performance, I'm going to check weather, let's go flying today. With IFR, that is definitely not the case. There are a whole lot of regulations that go into instrument flying for us to even be able to take off. So before we even touch the plane, there's so much that goes into IFR. So with that being said, there are phases of flight, so to speak. In order to preface this, I really wanted to bring this up because it's important. So, right, we always start with the pre-flight. So pre-flight comes before we even touch the plane. So we have our pre-flight action, and then we have our departure procedures. So with instrument, that is definitely something that is a lot different. So with that in mind, we specifically have charts for those. Those are called our departure procedures. Now, a couple of types of departure procedures include an ODP, which is your obstacle departure procedure. You have a VCOA, which is a visual climb over the airfield. You also have a SID, which are for larger airports, and that is a standard instrument departure procedure. So, furthermore, after our departure procedure, we have our en route. So, this is just your basic en route chart here. It's really just navigating from point to point to point to point, using either like some form of navigation. So, those navigational sources could be NDBs, BORs, you've got GPS. GPS is like the best, the king of it all. So things like that. So that's your en route. Now, it depends on what type of plane you're flying and the capabilities of that aircraft. So I fly the Cirrus SR20 primarily. So when we're looking at the aspects of en route and the next phase of flight, it depends on how high I am, right? So I'm going to be probably about, 12,000 feet in my Cirrus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight from en route to the arrival phase. Or approach. I'm so sorry. From the en route directly to the approach. Now let's say I'm flying a Boeing 737. That Boeing 737, we're probably going to be at 30,000 feet. So we have to have some leeway in between. Like, we have to fill the gap between en route and approach. And that's when an arrival comes in. So typically larger jets, there are some arrivals that piston airplanes use. So keep that in mind. We will be going over departure procedures and arrival procedures a little bit later. Now, what I really wanted to talk about today is approaches. So, approaches get you either from en route to landing or from arrival to landing. So basically, it's a method to get you onto the runway safely, effectively, and sort of efficiently. So there are a couple of types here. There's going to be like VOR. There's a few NDB left. And there's, so VOR, NDB, had a yawn there for a second, my apologies. So like NDB, VOR, we got RNAV, so area navigation using GPS and ILS. There's a few others, but just for today, we'll just keep it pretty simple. So I'm going to find an airport here, courtesy of SkyVector. Thank you, SkyVector. So we're going to look at Cedar City's approach plates here. Let me see if I can shrink this a little bit. Oop. You know what, that's totally fine. So we're going to look at this approach plate a little bit. So we're going to start off with an ILS, just because ILS precision, it's great. Definitely probably my favorite approaches to flyer ILSs. They're a lot of fun. So first and foremost, I like to think of these approach plates as a cheeseburger, right? There's lettuce, tomatoes, you got the bun, the patty, cheese, if you eat mayo and mustard and things like that with your hamburger, right? The approach plate is basically a hamburger. So I like to look at it from the outside and then travel inwards to the center. In my personal opinion, the best cheeseburgers I've ever tasted have really, really good buns. So, for example, I recently went on a trip to Hawaii, and I can tell you that the best cheeseburgers, like seriously, the best ones ever have the best bun. If you have a terrible bun and the like Wagyu beef, it's a terrible burger. Like, I mean, it's kind of like a stretch of an opinion to have, but in my eyes, you can have the best bun and the worst patty, and it's the best burger ever. So I kind of look at it like that. So I look at the bun first and then work my way in and go, okay, is this a good cheeseburger? So we're going to do that today. We're going to start with this plate. So the bun is kind of like the outside of this entire thing. So you'll notice a couple of things up here. We have the location in this top left corner, Cedar City, Utah, right? And then coming over here, we have some information in the center, the top center, that's for the FAA. And then over here, we have ILS or localizer runway 20 into Cedar City Regional, right? So we're going to make sure that we're on the right plate and we have the right bun. If we don't have the right bun, it's not good. Now over here to the sides, we have SW4. That's going to be kind of like the section of like the chart section we're located in. 26th of December 2024 to 26th of January 2025. That's the validity period. So say it's the 24th of January, this chart is expired and the bun is no longer good. The bun is moldy. It's bad. You can't use it. So that is the preface with the bun. Now, down here at the bottom of the chart, it'll say pretty much the same thing. So that is definitely of good help there. Now, oh, my chart button went away. I'm gonna have to reload this really quick. So, that's the bun. We want to make sure we're on the right plate with the right dates. And our bun is delicious. We can continue to move inside. Now we're going to come up to this top left box. You're going to notice a few things that's really, really weird. But it's actually fairly simple. So every ILS localizer has a frequency. So that's going to be your localizer 110.1. So that's what you tune into your nav. Approach course 200. So that's saying that when you're coming in, you're going to be about 200, which our runway is 20. So 200 degrees. We're basically landing towards a southerly heading. So runway LDG, that means like your runway landing zone is 8,653 feet. TDZE, touchdown elevation zone, 5,605 feet. Airport elevation, 5622. Now, that's kind of like our ketchup, so to speak. A lot of this comes down to our pre-flight action. So ketchup is our pre-flight action right here. And then we're going to come into like the mayo and the mustard, if you like to put the mayo and the mustard on. Our sauces are going to be our pre-flight. So you'll notice this says DME required. So in order to fly this approach, your aircraft must be equipped with DME. Now DME just means it's distant measuring equipment, and it gives you a distance based off slant range. Alright, so now we move into some more of the condiments here with the T, this black T and this black A with NA. So the black T means non-standard takeoff minimums. Now you're going to want to consult another source for that. We will touch on that a little bit better in a different video when we talk about approach and arrival and departure procedures. We'll talk about non-standard takeoff, non-standard alternate minimums a little bit more. So non-standard, this A means non-standard alternate minimums and not authorized for use as an alternate. So definitely keep that in mind when you're pre-flight planning. Now let's talk a little bit about this box, this verbiage, so to speak, next to it. It says Zojpo fixed minimums, dual VOR receivers required for inoperative airport lighting system, increase straight-in localizer 20 categories Charlie and Delta, visibility to 1 3/8 statute mile. For inoperative ALS, increase S localizer 20 categories Charlie Delta, visibility to 2.5 statute miles. Alright, so basically that's saying that if you're category Charlie or Delta, you have to alter your visibility requirements if you don't meet the criteria stated in there. So, for example, in the bottom section where it says for inoperative ALS, increase Charlie Delta visibility to 2.5 statute miles. If your ALS is inoperative and you are a category Charlie or Delta aircraft, you must increase your visibility to 2.5 statute miles. Alright, so next, this middle box here indicates your lighting system. So, Mulser lighting. Now, a lot of times I do get asked, like, hey, why do we care about this box? Like, it seems pretty dang pointless to me. And I will tell you right now that it is not pointless at all. We are going to go to my home international airport right here. I am from Salt Lake City. Born and raised. It's alright. I love Salt Lake, but, it has its pros and cons, just like any other place here. So let's get an airport diagram here. So the purpose and the function of the lighting system is to inform pilots. It's like a guiding tool, VFR, we go, hey, I can see runway 20. I can see the runway markings. It says 20 on the ground. I can see it, so logically I can land there because I'm on the right runway and all of this. Now, IFR makes it 2 million times harder to actually be able to see those numbers. So I'll tell a little story really quick. I was on a flight up here to Salt Lake International Airport. Training flight, super fun. They had me land runway, it was 17. So I entered a left downwind for runway 17. Pretty straightforward. I had done that a million times before. Totally fine. So I made circuits over here on the east side of the airport. The controller says, hey, Cirrus, we need you to switch runways. Enter a right downwind for runway 16 left. So I was like, okay, awesome. So, for context here, I had to switch from runway 17 to runway 16 left. Now, this kind of gets confusing because Salt Lake, you have parallel runways, which makes sense because it's super easy to line up with the wrong runway. So, in my case here, I was transitioning from runway 17 to 16 left. So I took off of 17 again, and the controller told me to basically turn like an early extended, whatever you want to call it, right crosswind. So I turned right crosswind over here and headed west, and then turned downwind for runway 16. Now this is a stretch here. This is like a huge stretch. And I knew he said, okay, right traffic, so obviously I'm going to make right traffic. I'm not going to turn left. So I knew which runway I was going to land on. So fast forward, my plane is heading northbound, and I'm getting ready to turn base. So I turn base, and I go, okay, here's my runway. Here's my runway. I have it in sight. So, needless to say, the aircraft kind of blocked my field of vision, and I was looking at runway 17. So I made this super, super wide base turn that I shouldn't have made, and I came back inbound for runway 16 because I finally realized my mistake. Luckily, I only overshot by a teeny bit, and it took me about 5 seconds to correct it. Now, this was at night, so I didn't have reference to those numbers on runway 17 or 16 left. I only had the lighting system. Now, I was an IFR rated pilot, and I already kind of knew, okay, Malzer, we've got ALSIF 1, ALSIF 2, things like that. So I kind of knew what to look out for. Then when I instantaneously remembered that, hey, runway 17 is a Malzer, I believe. Yep, it's a Malzer. And runway 16 left is an ALSIF. So I should be looking out for the ALSIF, not the Malzer. So that is why it's important to understand the difference between those markings or those lights, because of that reason. You're not going to have reference to any of this. So that is why they put those the boxes on the approach plate. So we have the Malzer lighting. So we know, okay, I'm looking out for my Malzer lighting here. Alright, there we go. That was kind of crazy. So we have that Malzer lighting, so we have that quick reference to go, okay, hey, I'm lined up with the correct runway. Anyways, continuing on, that was kind of a side tangent there. We have kind of our Mayo of the situation, our frequencies. So ASOS, that's your weather, 119.025. Salt Lake City Center, 125.575. And our Unicom, 1230. So our CTAF. Now we kind of get into the patty and the cheese, the pickles, the fun stuff you want to put on the burger. So let's talk about this top-down view. I like to call this middle part the satellite. So the satellite view kind of informs you of what you're going to do and where you are. So let's say we're starting from the south here. ATC clears us to Burl. So Burl is an IAF. So IAF stands for Initial Approach Fix. So that's kind of like the starting point of the maze, like on those childish mazes that they would have on the cereal box. It says like start here. That's what an IAF is. So I'm going to start here at the IAF at Burl. So ATC cleared me to Burl. They're going to say something like Cirrus X-Ray Yankee Golf cleared to Burl, 16.5 DME arc, ILS 20. So then you'd read that back, and you're basically cleared for the approach. So at Burl, we're going to start our 16.5 DME arc. That's what this little baseball diamond represents here. So we're basically going to track 16.5 DME all the way around to what we call the LR lead radial. It's super small, but the lead radial is 016. So basically what that means is we're going to do a DME arc all the way around until we intercept lead radial 016. It's a lot easier to explain this when you're flying, but these are just some basic key components of this approach. And then as soon as you intercept lead radial 016, I'm going to switch over to the ILS localizer frequency 110.1 and track that inbound towards the runway. So while we're looking at this top-down view, a couple of things to note. This right here, Enoch VOR, that is a VOR DME as shown here, depicted by the little box and the little shapey inside of it. Now up here at Milford, that is a VORTAC. So the VOR DME VORTAC situation kind of stays the same. But another thing you notice is if we come over here to Clemo, we see that there's IA, IF, and IAF. So IF is an intermediate fix. So you can kind of think of this as like point A, point B, point C. So point A is your initial approach fix, point B is your intermediate fix, and point C is your final approach fix. So your final approach fix down here is Seho intersection. And I know that because down here on the side profile view, we have the Maltese cross with the lightning bolts. So Seho, that's my final approach fix, and I need to be fully configured at 7,800. So if you're kind of unsure what a lot of this terminology means, I highly, highly recommend looking at the Instrument Flying Handbook and the Instrument Procedures Handbook. So, with that being said, these little lines right here, like R278, that's a radial. Localizer 110.1, that's your localizer frequency for the Cedar City localizer. Now, it's kind of hard to track where I'm going at, but if we track from Burl all the way to the lead radial here, it says 1000, no PT, Enoch, 16.5 DME arc. So the 1000 says that you're supposed to be at 11,000 feet while you're doing this arc. Now, no PT, that just means no procedure turn. And the reason why there's no procedure turn is because you're coming from the south and the arc is already turning you. So it's already setting you up to intercept the final approach course, or the localizer, basically, to track it inbound and land. Okay, so I think, oh yeah, so you'll notice that ENIC right here, it has 117.3. So that is your actual, what you tune in to navigate with. Tune, identify, source, and course for the VOR. The line underneath just means it has no voice. Alright, so last thing I kind of wanted to point out up here is the MSA. So that's your minimum safe altitude. That basically ensures safety. Like, you have obstacle clearance, so you're not going to hit anything. Now, so let's say we're between radial 050 and 190 down here. It's going to be 12,600. So as long as you're at 12,600 or above 12,600, you'll be good. You'll be safe. Now, lastly, I know I said the MSA was the last thing, but this is so important as well. This is this little dash down here to the south at the bottom of the top down view. That is your missed approach. So your missed approach, we're going to brief that here in a second. So your missed approach is basically tracing up, and it looks like it's going to intercept radial 278 and head out to Burl and do this hold loop over here. So let's get down to kind of like the rest of this here. So we mentioned that SEIHO is our final approach fix. Couple of symbols here. We have 14000 and 11000 here. So this is kind of like a sandwich. So I think of it as a Subway sandwich. You've got the bun. You don't want to go above the bun or below the bun. You want the condiments in the middle of the bun. So we need to be between 11000 and 14000. ATC should give you an altitude. Yeah. So GS down here means glide slope. So it's a 3 degrees. So it's a 3-degree glide slope. And TCH, threshold crossing height, is 47 feet. So you will cross the threshold at about 47 feet here. So our missed approach point is fairly straightforward. Now, a couple things with SEIHO that I forgot to touch on. With the final approach fix, you want to be fully configured. So you want gear down. If you're in a complex aircraft, you want gear down, flaps down, and lights, altimeter, stabilized, and timer. So when we reach SEIHO, we are going to have all of those things done. We're basically ready to chill. We're looking out for the runway, and we're going to start our timer. So that's what this little thing from FAF to MAP. So FAF is your final approach fix. So SEIHO. So from SEIHO to our missed approach point, MAP, if we're going 120 knots, now this is ground speed, okay? So 120 knots ground speed, it's going to take us about 3 minutes and 21 seconds to reach our missed approach point. Now, with the whole missed approach point thing, let's talk about minimums here. So if we do the ILS, straight in ILS 20 here, you'll notice we have two sets of minimums. And the reason is because of this little cross here. So 5825, it's a lower minimum because of this cross. Now, the cross is up here at the top right box here in the missed approach section. It says missed approach requires minimum climb of 210 feet per nautical mile to 7,300. So it's a little bit higher of a climb gradient. So that's very important to know. Make sure you can make that climb gradient. So I calculated it out, and yes, I can make that 210 feet per nautical mile to 7,300 tonight. So we're going to be using 5825 here. So 5,825 feet is going to be our DA. So our DA is our decision altitude. DH is our decision height. Okay, so this 1/2, that's a half statute mile of visibility. So the approach plate is basically saying that I need a half statute mile of visibility to make this approach work. Now, you do notice that there's A, B, C, and D here. Those are just your different categories. So in this series, like, we try to train to do faster approaches. But like, let's say I'm flying a Cessna. My Cessna is going to fall into category A, so I'm going to use those minimums. So 5825 applies to everyone. Now, down here, let's talk about SLOC 20. So that just means that it's a straight in localizer 20. So category A, we're going to say that we're category A today. I'm going to use 6440 with 1/2 statute mile visibility. Now, if you notice, if I hop in my category B aircraft, the minimums stay the same for the MDA. Now, MDA is for a non-precision approach. So our MDA is going to be 6440 with 3/4 statute mile visibility. So the only thing that really raises here is the visibility. And same thing with category Charlie and Delta. You'll notice 6440 with 1 7/8 statute mile visibility. So basically 2 statute miles of visibility is what you need to land Charlie and Delta aircraft with straight in localizer 20. Now, you'll notice Zojipo fixed minimums apply when you have dual VORs required. So I do have dual VOR receivers. I can do that. I can do those minimums. Now that we have minimums cleared up, so I'm using 5825 today for my straight in ILS 20. I can meet the 210 feet per nautical mile to 7,300. Let's talk about what happens if I can't make this approach work. Like, I'm coming in crazy, the wind shear, kind of crazy weird things, or I don't see the runway, something doesn't clear up, something doesn't feel right, I can go missed. So we're going to read it from this top right box first, and then we'll refer to the picture down here. So the missed approach, climb to 6,200, then climbing right turn to 10,000 on heading 322, and on Enoch radial 278 to Burrell, intersection Enoch 16.5 DME and hold, continue climb and hold to 10,000. So basically that's saying that I'm climbing to 6,200, so I'm following runway heading up until 6,200 feet. Then I'm going to make a right turn to heading 322 and continue my climb to 10,000. And then I'm going to head towards radial 278 and intercept radial 278. And then continue on radial 278 to Burrell and hold. So that seems kind of complex, but when you get into the airplane and actually fly these approaches, it makes a lot more sense. Now, there are a lot of different symbols associated with these charts that not often get talked about. So, I highly recommend doing a lot of research before you start instrument training, because that research will help immensely with the understanding of these approach plates. That is the biggest thing you're tested on your check ride, is approaches. Can you get your aircraft down safely? Can you land your aircraft safely? So, that's kind of the basic introduction to an approach plate. One last thing that I wanted to do before calling this video quits is brief an approach plate. So, let me pull one up here. Let's pick a random airport. Let's see. Let's do So let's just pick a random place here. Let's do Santa Monica. That's departure. I want approaches. We'll do RNAV GPS runway 21. Alright, so yeah, we will use this one. So we will just pretend that ATC told us to expect the RNAV GPS 21 into Santa Monica. So this is kind of like how I brief my approaches, almost exactly how I just explained it. I use the cheeseburger method. I go from the bun to the inside. So I'll just kind of brief this, and I'll take it really, really slow. So then you guys kind of understand the key concepts. So, before I start, a couple of things you'll notice is I don't really brief these boxes, like the pre-flight boxes. I don't really brief that, okay? I take that into heavy consideration during my pre-flight action if it's a familiar airport. If it's a familiar airport, that's how I treat it. But because this is an unfamiliar airport, I've never ever flown here, you'll see what this looks like. Alright, here we go. I'll brief this. Alright, so today we're flying into Santa Monica, California. We were told to expect the RNAV GPS runway 21 into Santa Monica Municipal, Sierra Mike Oscar. Plate is up to date, plate is current. We do need WAS for this approach. I double checked WAS about 5 minutes ago. We do have WAS. Approach course 213. Runway landing distance available 3,500. Touchdown elevation zone 170. Airport elevation zone 170. This is an RNP approach. Non-standard takeoff, alternate minima. For uncompensated baro VNAV, we have a compensated baro VNAV, so it looks like we are good, and we are an airplane, not a helicopter. Our ATIS frequency 119.15, SoCal approach contact 135.05, Santa Monica Tower 120.1, ground control 121.9, Unicom 122.95. Let's go ahead and plug in all of those frequencies. Alright, continuing on, we have our top-down view. We are starting from the northeast. So, ATC is probably going to give us vectors, and we'll intercept the course by the time we hit the final approach fix. So, final approach fix looks like it's MOVI, and we need to be fully configured at 3,000 feet. We need to have our gear down, flaps down, lights, altimeter stabilized, and timer if it applies to the approach. Radar is required. Our MSA around this flyover point, so runway 21, is going to be 7,800 within 25 nautical miles. Awesome, cool. So our decision point looks like it's going to be, or our VDP, my apologies, our VDP is going to be 2.4 nautical miles away from the runway 21. That is where we will pick up, see if we can see it, and then go missed. So our minimums for today, it looks like we'll probably be able to shoot the LPV. Is going to be 440 feet with 1 statute mile of visibility. Our weather is looking good. We have our missed approach goes as follows. Climb to 600, then climbing right, turn to 5,000, direct Kebab, and on track 283 to Sadie and hold. Continue climb and hold to 5,000. And we have our graphical depiction down here. Alright, so that's kind of basically how I brief an approach. Now I'm going to brief one more approach, and then we'll call this video a basic introduction to approach plates. Let's see, let's find a random airport. Oops. Oh, let's see. That's not what I wanted. Let's go to Denver. So let's see here. Denver International. Let's see if they have a VOR. Nope, they only have RNAVs. Let's go. Let's see here. It's kind of hard to find. I'm trying to find, because we did an RNAV and we did an ILS. So I want you guys to kind of see each type of approach. Alright, cool. Let me just make sure this is the, yep, awesome. Okay, so let's look at this VOR approach into Ogden-Hinckley. We'll just say that ATC has told us to expect the VOR alpha into Ogden-Hinckley. So this is how I would brief this. Once again, I've never been here, never done this approach. Alright, so ATC told us to expect VOR alpha into Ogden-Hinckley Airport in Ogden, Utah. Plate is current, plate is up to date. So, frequency 115.7, approach course 101. Not available, airport elevation zone 4473. Non-standard takeoff, non-standard alternate minima. Circling to runway 17, not authorized at night. Circling, not authorized for category Charlie, Delta. Runway 17 and 35 helicopter. Awesome. And when local altimeter setting is not received, use Hill Air Force Base. Frequencies 12555, 1211, 118.7, 1217, 122.95. Let's go ahead and load those. Alright, so continuing on, DME or radar is required. Awesome, we have it. MSA is located here. It looks like we're starting from the north up here. So ATC is probably going to have us, we're starting from the northeast, correction. So it looks like ATC is probably going to have us do a 10 DME arc, and start our IAF is going to be rack go. And once we're inbound, we will intercept the final approach course. Our final approach fix is Ogden Vortec. We need to be fully configured at 5,700 feet. Minimums today are 4,980 with 1 statute mile of visibility. It is circling, so we're going to end up circling to the other runway. And we're probably going to be going about 120 knots indicated, knots ground speed. So we're going to time it at the final approach fix, and it should be around 1 minute and 45 seconds. Missed approach goes as follows. Climbing left turn to 3000 direct Ogden Vortec, and on Ogden Vortec radial 263 to Moint intersection 15.1 DME and hold. Continue climb and hold to 3000. We have our graphical depiction down here. Alright, so that is a very basic introduction to approach plates. Now, huge disclaimer on this video. I did not include every single minuscule detail. So I will be doing different parts to these videos and progressively getting more and more in detail. This was just a basic introduction. I would like to thank you all for tuning in to this new video series. I think I have decided that these educational videos will replace the podcast for now, and I look forward to producing more of these. I will do probably special use airspace next and continue on from there. But I want to thank you, and I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you on the next one.